let us all do we can to build a better future.
This is a story, folks. Something that I've been talking about for a while when we were anticipating another foreclosure eviction crisis. We've seen the rumblings with that. And one of the things that I mentioned is I was a witness to this because I was sort of kind of working in the real estate, well, in this case, the real estate education industry at the time. But we saw what happened in 2007, 2008, when we had the massive foreclosure crisis, which was largely engineered by banks and their government enablers. But it did leave these banks with all these properties they had to figure out what to deal with. Well, what I've been saying for a couple of years now is that these banks have had a trial run. Now they know how to handle it. It used to be that banks didn't want to foreclose, didn't want to seize properties because they are not in the real estate management business. I think they've learned a few tricks over time. And I've got something that indicates that this may very well be the case. So here's what's going on. JPMorgan Chase, they are launching a new online platform for managing tenant landlord payments,
Oh
residential
God.
payments. Okay.
Oh
And
God.
they are targeting very specifically the small time landlord. And keep in mind, small time landlords, in fact, most landlords in this country own a handful of properties. They are not major slumlords. They're not fat cats getting rich. They're folks who may have a few units. That's it. And they are launching this platform, payment platform called Story. And the language around this, and you can check out, the links and all that. The language around it is they want to disrupt the way rental payments are being made, because larger landlords, larger property management firms have these proprietary management platforms where, yeah, people can put in their credit cards and check their information, and they can do that. But those platforms are not suitable for the small time landlord. Well, JPMorgan Chase wants to change all that. Okay.
All right. Well, let's have democracy in the chat, folks. Hey, type 1 if you trust JPMorgan Chase with helping out property owners and managers and regular people. Trust 1 if you trust JPMorgan Chase with the rent. Type 2 if it's an HELL no.
Yeah. Okay. So let's move on here. Okay. So they want to shift rent payments to automatic drafts rather than paper checks. Okay. They're saying, yeah, people only have their checkbooks around so that they can pay their rent. Well, we want to change all that, make it easier for these automatic drafts to happen. The other thing, though, is that this whole system is offering landlord tools like 70% discounts on the cost of rental screening, but also information about property values and helping the landlord know what to charge for rent.
Oh my God.
Now, one thing to keep in mind is whenever when a service like this is being offered, you need to keep in mind that there's always the front-facing end on how it works. Okay, they seem to be offering this landlord-tenant service for small-time landlords. They seem to be offering that. Okay, here's the thing. JPMorgan is going to collect a whole lot of data from this service, which they have also admitted could be used to help make real estate investment decisions.
Oh no.
And what if JPMorgan happens to be, the note holder on the small-time landlord's mortgage?
What could possibly go wrong, Lainey? I think we're overreacting. What could go wrong?
Yeah. Okay. I want you all to think about the implications of this, because all of a sudden, possibly the mortgage note holder or just this bank that happens to be in town that works with possibly developers or knows some people on the board of one of these private equity firms that's been buying up the properties, all of a sudden JPMorgan now has intimate knowledge of exactly what has been going on and how this landlord has been managing their property, what they're charging, rental rates, the information about the property. It's all there, and they've got it all there that can be used and exploited. So let's talk about this. First of all, Chase and other banks already offer electronic payment options. These include debit cards, credit cards that can be, used to pay either directly through a platform, or if you have a small time landlord, through PayPal or Venmo or any of those other services. They also have Zelle, which is the own bank-owned transfer system that allows for these electronic payments. The thing there, though, is that these are tenant initiators. So if you're the one it's the payee, the payer, who initiates the payment. There's no room for just an automatic draft. It's going to be the payer who's going to do that. Also, that information is in that channel. It's not part of I mean, there's still going to be data gathering. Trust me on this one, and everything that's automatic, but it is not a proprietary uh, landlord-tenant focused platform that gives a whole lot of data back to the bank.
Okay.
Also keep in mind, tenants often use money orders and cashier's checks to pay their rent. Now, again, one reason you would do that is that, yeah, your landlord doesn't want to take a check because they don't want the check to bounce. Another good reason why a tenant doesn't want to pay with a check but would rather pay with a money order or a cashier's check is that a money order cashier's check does not reveal their checking account information to the landlord, who could use it for their own purposes. So there are secure ways of paying the rent, money order or cashier's check, that don't involve electronic transactions and don't involve giving bank information or an insecure transaction, which a paper check kind of is. All right. Now, my concern about this automatic draft option is, okay, what kind of control does the tenant have over that to, say, for example, halt an automatic payment? I mentioned this because if it's very difficult for the tenant to get in there and stop an automatic payment, there's of course the real consequence of, there's a problem with their finances and there's the overdraft charges, but it also could limit that tenant's ability to withhold rent if a landlord is paying unethically. In some jurisdictions, not all, so don't take this as advice to do this, but in some jurisdictions, if a landlord is not upholding their end of the lease or rental agreement, or is not following landlord-tenant law, one tool that tenants have is rent withholding. They either can withhold rent or they have to put the rent into an escrow account. It's not advisable just to do that on your own. You want to talk to a lawyer or a tenant advocate first before doing that, because you can get into real trouble with it. But in many areas, you do have that option legally. Well, if it's already being drafted and that it's taking, in some cases, days ahead, and the process gets going before you can stop it, that could remove a tenant option. And that's something to also be concerned about. The other thing I'm going to mention, and we talk about this a lot, is these data reporting companies, data collection can work against a tenant in ways that are not intended. For example, I was looking at the platform, and it shows where if a tenant has not paid their rent on time, or what's delayed or what's late. And the thing is that doesn't always tell the whole story, because many times tenants work with independent landlords because the independent landlords are more flexible on payments. They understand that the tenant might be paying on the 15th or the 20th of the month rather than on the 1st or on the 31st. They may allow a tenant to split payments. And that's not uncommon. They have a working arrangement there, and it works for them. But the data being collected is not going to show that this is a good faith agreement between landlord and tenant. And that could work against the tenant if the tenant wants to rent an apartment in the future, or in the future. And keep in mind that JPMorgan Chase is offering a 70% discount to landlords for using its preferred tenant screening services. What do you think's going to happen there?
Well, what I could see happening is people losing their shirts. And by the way, one thing that's really standing out in this article, and again, it's from CNBC, landlords and renters don't have to be JPMorgan customers to sign up for the platform when it's released more broadly next year. You know what? I could see some loopholes for some scumbags to really do some fraudulent behavior, unless I'm wrong here. But I mean, this is JPMorgan Chase. We're talking about a bank, a large bank, similar to a lot of other banks that have done shady and questionable actions in the past. And I'm just going to take this quote from Bad Cookies right here. It says, "Come on, Kit. You could totally trust the banks to do the right thing, just like you trust Pennywise handing you a little paper boat. What could go wrong, Lainey?
Penny wise, pound foolish. Um, the thing is that this data collection option, and then that's what I'm driving home on here. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
When Amazon bought out Whole Foods, and we reported it was one of our very first stories on Hardlands Media when we started on the radio back in
Yep.
2017. That was when Amazon acquired Whole Foods. And everybody was thinking, scratching their heads, well, I guess Amazon's now selling organic, overpriced food in these stores. The background story on that, though, was that with that acquisition, Amazon gained cold storage facilities within 10 miles of 80% of the US population.
Wow.
And that was something that was not being acknowledged. But what it did is it automatically just gave it enormous distribution abilities around the country. And in this case, again, okay, you've got a product that's up front all about helping out the small time landlord collect rents electronically and supposedly helping out tenants to keep track of their rental payments.
Mm-hmm.
But in fact, there's an awful lot of data that they're going to be getting out of this. And they're going to be able to use it in their own schemes, their own investment portfolios. And it's going to make it that, in my view, that much easier for those who want to scoop up housing, the great housing scoop, to get the information that they need to go into these neighborhoods and scoop up this property once small time landlords either lose their homes to foreclosure, decide they're going to sell for whatever reason, they die. It's going to make it that much easier for those who have access to that big data to come in and take over that community. And in fact, I also believe that it may very well hurt tenants over the years because the data being reported will not reflect
Mm-hmm.
the reason why rent payments were made when they did. And this is a real concern.
Again, I just want to just two notes I want to end this segment on. First, number one, I want to return back to that super chat we got from Alan Myron, who said, "Never fall into debt, help each other. Karma's a real thing." That's right, we do have to help each other out. And then number two, I think, hey, we got to leave them smiling. Nautilus on Rockfin says, "I live in an 18-wheeler because I won't pay these MFers a goddamn thing." Again, look, folks, keep your head on the swivel. Let's try and be as independent as we can, but help each other out too, because it's like I said, it's gonna get bad, and I don't want to see it happen. I don't want to report on more bad news, but we've talked about this when we started the show in 2017 on the radio, on the Galaxy S7 cell phone that we used to do field work in. I mean, this is stuff we used to talk about
All the
and
time.
still do all the time, and other independent media networks are talking about this too. We have to start building organizations and movements not connected to Washington, D.C., because there is a severe gut check that's going to happen, and a lot of good people are going to get hurt, and we got to just help each other out. Simple as that.